Hello, welcome again. We will continue with the second session of this virtual learning exchange for CTICFF under the European Union Ocean Governance Project. So the second session is devoted to the resilience, to coastal resilience, and is about the presentation of a new tool for marine protected areas management to deal with this coastal resilience. So I'm glad to give the floor as the moderator for this session to my colleague Jean-Jacques Boussard, which is the technical coordinator for this coastal resilience twinning project in the ocean governance project as well. So Jean-Jacques, you will be in charge of the presentation of the different speakers and coordinating the debate. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Polly, and thank you all for making time to attend this session. So good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jean-Jacques Boussard, and I'm, as Polly said, coordinating the Resilience Partnership within the framework of the Ocean Governance Project. It's an EU project. So during this session, we will have now a short introduction and with a small poll with 2 questions. After that, we will have 2 consecutive presentations on the Resilience Partnership. The first one is dedicated to the partnership itself and the different partners and their respective good practice regarding resilience-based management. And after that, the second session, we will talk about the resolution, the WCC 030 resolution on coastal resilience, and on the tools and web platforms that have been developed through this partnership. After this 2 presentations, I would like to mention also that our partners from the Americas will make this intervention with video due to time difference. And we will have an online presentation of Mathieu Ducrot, our partner in Western Africa, during these 2 consecutive presentations. So after that, we will have 5 minutes for question and answers. And we will have also the last presentation by Valérie Braun. I'm very pleased to introduce Valérie. She's a research coordinator for the National Marine Sanctuary of America Samoa, and she's coordinating a climate vulnerability assessment for the sanctuary in American Samoa. After this last presentation, we will have 5 minutes dedicated to question and answers. And after that, the last poll with 2 questions, and we will close between 10 and 25 and 10:30. So thank you very much. Please, could you launch the poll? Okay, so we have 5 minutes to answer the questions of this poll. And in the meantime, I will start the first presentation. we will wait until to reach 100% of the participants responding to the poll. Okay, thank you very much. And we are at 55%. Okay, so thank you very much. And we will end the poll and start the presentation. So the MPAs and resilience partnership, the objective is to share experience, good practice, tools and approach and issues related to two topics. The first one are the strategies implemented by MPAs to cope with rapidly changing environments. And the second is related to the approaches developed by MPAs to contribute to coastal territory resilience, to the surrounding coastal territory resilience. We are addressing threats and change induced by climate change, the pressure arising from the dynamic of urban expansion or caused by tourism and residential and touristic infrastructure development, and other pressure linked generally with rapid development. We know that rapid development and rapid change are occurring more or less almost in all the world, and almost all the MPAs are facing in different, at various levels, the effects of this change. This partnership started in 2016. It was initially designed for the Atlantic Basin. The Atlantic Basin includes 62 countries and 31 overseas territories. And we think that we will be able to extend this partnership to Southeast Asia with new partners since next year. So our objective are to develop technical capacities of MPA manager by sharing good practice, knowledge, expertise, to provide MPA manager with tools. And one of the tools we will present later is a resilience self-assessment tool for MPA manager to assess and monitor MPA resilience-based management capacity. The third is to contribute to the improvement of MPA management plan, providing guidance to reinforce resilience capacity, to create also a network of trained managers able to provide assistance and capacity building to other MPA managers, and to promote and develop the resilience toolkit we have been developing since 2017. We have different partners. We have partners in Brazil, we have partners in Mexico, we have partners in Portugal, in Senegal, and in other countries of Western Africa, in USA, with the Jacques Cousteau National Historian Research Reserve. And also we are starting to work with the networks of land manager partners. We are also working with different networks, as we said this morning, with MEDPAN, with the Western Africa network of MPAs, and other networks. So we will present now some good practice that have been developed by our partners. The first partner in the Abrolhos Banks National Park in Brazil is the main coral reef in southern Atlantic. It is an offshore marine protected area. And this marine protected area has been severely affected by the mining disaster that occurred in 2015. And the management of this MPR was maintaining very good relations with all the stakeholders of the different categories of stakeholders. That means fishers, municipalities, local government, the mining company, federal government, and they have been, they played a very important role for the resolution of the conflicts, of the post-disaster conflicts that occurred between all these stakeholders. Brazil, the second partner, is the mosaic of protected areas of the state of Santa Catarina in the south of Brazil, where we have 5 federal protected areas, 2 provincial protected areas, and 28 municipal protected areas. So it's a very interesting territorial mosaic of protected areas with different levels of conservation. And it's very interesting for the management of the resilience and of biodiversity in a context that is affected by very rapid change and very rapid urban sprawl. Now, in United States, in New Jersey, we work with the Jacques Cousteau National Research Reserve, and we will have the word, we will listen the communication of Mike DeLuca and Lisa Muller, who are the managers of this reserve. Please, could you start the video 1? I deactivate my share screen. Thank you.
Good day. My name is Mike DeLuca. I'm the manager of the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve. And with me today is Lisa Auermuller, who's the assistant manager. And today we'd like to give you a brief overview of coastal resilience programs that we provide at the Cousteau Reserve. And I'd just like to note that we are part of Rutgers University, and also want to thank Jean-Jacques for the opportunity to present today. We're very pleased to be a core partner of the Atlantic Twinning Initiative. We are part of a research reserve network or system. There are 29 coastal and marine protected areas that comprise the reserve system. We do a lot of what we call system-wide or national scale programs in terms of sampling and sensing the environment with respect to water quality, habitat change. We're all about science-based management, providing science-based information that coastal decision makers can use to inform their decisions about the environment and about coastal communities. And we don't do this alone. We leverage a lot of partnerships and resources to support our work. And we like to say that we're locally responsive to local needs, but have nationally significant benefits. So here's a list of some of the programs that we're engaged in, some of which are directed at coastal ecosystems and some at coastal communities. It's a very broad, diverse portfolio, ranging from looking at response of coastal ecosystems, especially marshes, to sea level rise, looking at migration corridors for marshes, and more recently range shifts that we're witnessing in response to environmental or climate change. But today, we're really going to focus on efforts that Lisa has led with respect to enhancing the resilience of coastal communities to climate change. And Lisa is not only our assistant manager, but she's an expert on this topic. So I'll kick it over to Lisa. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's great to be with everyone. I'm going to talk briefly about our climate science work at Rutgers and how we use that science to help communities become more resilient. And before I hop into some of the specifics, I think it's important that you are all using the same definition that I'm using when I'm telling you about our work. And that is that resilience isn't just bouncing back to where a community was, but our work with communities, we really hope they end up better off than when they started in a better place, because they've integrated climate change into their planning and have thought about future conditions and what might be at risk in the future to their communities. And it's also important in our work for communities to realize that resilience is an ongoing process. It doesn't have just a definite start and end, that they will be continually assessing their risks and their vulnerabilities, continuing to use that information to help them plan, and then to implement actions and to become more resilient through that work. And then starting again at the beginning to see how things have changed and shifted and what else might be at risk or vulnerable because the climate is continuously changing. As Mike said earlier, we do use science to inform all of our outreach to coastal communities, and that is really foundational to the work we do. Sometimes that science isn't as easily understood on the ground, so we try to make it more useful and usable by putting together tools to help inform decision-making based in that science. NJ Adapt is the platform that we host at Rutgers in order to house all those tools that we've developed. 3 of the most popular tools are on the screen here: our New Jersey Flood Mapper tool, our new Municipal Snapshots tool, and then our New Jersey Forest Adapt tool. And these tools are also linked through the MPA Resilience web portal that you all are aware of. Here is a screenshot of what our Flood Mapper tool looks like when we work with communities. So not only can they look at where future water might be inundating their community and their roadways, but they can also overlay all these different data layers on top of it to really see to the extent with which all these different assets within their communities are exposed and vulnerable. And we can show them that not only with current conditions, but also looking into the future as well. We also have recently started to get citizens and coastal residents involved in becoming citizen scientists and collecting data on the ground for us using their smartphones by taking pictures of areas within their community where they are seeing high water, like the photo you see on the screen here, and then using it to document areas where community members and community leaders should really be investing in mitigation and adaptation actions to reduce that risk. And the final thought I'll leave you all with is that although I've talked to you a lot about roadways and structures within communities and increasing their resilience, it really is important to think about all the different parts of a community that really make a community what it is. So beyond just thinking about what gets wet and for how long, thinking about how resilient the ecological and natural infrastructure is of that community, how resilient the government and governance of that community is, the residents and that residential resilience, especially when there's visitors to our coastal communities who might not be as familiar with what the coastal zone is like all the time. And then, of course, the business resilience, that important tie that the businesses have with coastal communities. So that's a quick insight into the work that we've done with coastal communities here in New Jersey. And I will turn it back to you, Mike, to close us out.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. So that's, as Lisa said, a very quick snapshot of the things that we're doing with respect to coastal resilience. We look forward to working with you, establishing new partnerships and collaborations, learning about your experience and best practices that you use, and whatever else we can bring to the table. So we look forward to making our new friends in Southeast Asia. And Jean-Jacques, thank you again for the opportunity to present today. Good day.
So thank you very much, Mike and Lisa. And okay, now we will talk about Gabon. Gabon is in okay, so we will talk about Gabon. Gabon is in Central Africa, and the capital city of Gabon, which name is Libreville. I have some issue because this capital city is surrounded by 3 marine protected areas, and the development of the city is very, very rapid and fast, and the boundaries of the city were reaching the limits of the marine protected areas. So the National Agency for National Park launched a territorial survey in order to understand this dynamic of urban sprawl. And after this exercise, other ministries such as urbanism or civil protection were very interested to work with the National Agency of National Parks in order to try to limit and to control better this urban expansion. So it's interesting. It's another case where conservation and protected areas has been able to provide support to other sectors in order to reach more controlled urban development. The next partner is in Portugal. It's North Littoral Natural Park. At the beginning, this marine protected area had just been created to protect a natural infrastructure. You see in the pictures that was defending, protecting the city from that could be affected by the sea and the proximity of the sea. But now, after creating this reserve, it appears that this reserve was also an economic incentive for the regions with, and for biodiversity, the protection allow that the reserve start welcoming migratory birds, and it became really an attractive spot in all the region, helping also to better control the land use. And after that, they have been able to create a society, a company, Littoral North, and now they have a capital of 45 million euros that ensure the sustainability, the financial sustainability of the reserve. The next one is Cozumel Biosphere Reserve in Mexico. It's an island, it's a biosphere reserve, but it's also a place which received more, before the COVID-19 for sure, which was receiving more or less 8 million tourists yearly. And they have been able to mitigate and to control this touristic pressure through a lot of agreements that have been faced with the different stakeholders, and especially private companies of tour operators, restaurants, hotels. And now we will listen to the word of Brenda Hernandez, who was the manager of the Cozumel Biosphere Reserve. Please.
Hello everybody, my name is Brenda Hernandez and I'm going to talk about the experience in Cozumel Biosphere Reserve in Mexico. As in charge to management a natural protected area between 2018 and 2020, Cozumel is a Mexican island in the Caribbean Sea. It is a part of the Mesoamerican Reef Systems, and its principal activity is tourism, specifically massive tourism. Cozumel is the principal cruise main port in the world, receives more than 5 million visitors per year, and also its reefs was very healthy, the most healthier in the Mesoamerican Reef Mexican portion. But activities like this one involves a lot of infrastructure to receive them, hotels, restaurants, etc. And also the island is vulnerable to many impacts, like bad quality water, invasive species, a lot of pressure to use the reef to touristic activities. In Cozumel, collaborate to the tour operators to promote best practices for the snorkeling and scuba diving. We capacitate almost 2,000 dive masters. In 2018, the Mesoamerican reef presents a new disease in corals. It was stony coral tissue loss disease. Immediately, we prepare a regional action plan to attend this massive death of corals. The disease was very fast. While we monitoring the water quality, implement restoration reefs program, we decided to develop and implement a strategies for coral reefs rest. It was a simple basic precautionary principle. It was a difficult time, people support these management decisions and people do not. After time, the strategy is adopted for all the tour operators, and with their collaboration, all the coral reefs has a calendar to rest to all the pressure. Now I am in Arrecife Alacranes National Park as the Deputy Director, another natural protected area with incredible coral reefs and another impacts like fisheries pressure. Now we start to reinforce capacity building to monitoring and elaborate an intervention program for the coral disease. It has been a pleasure to collaborate in this transatlantic marine protected area network. Regards.
Thank you very much. So I will share my screen. There is an issue to change. Okay. Now it works. The last partner is the Puerto Morelos National Park in Mexico, still in the same region than Cozumel in Yucatan. And there they have been implementing a post-storm response capacity insurance based on a reef brigade. So the Coastal Zone Management Trust collects and manages funds to fund the post-storm reef restoration. And this fund has been created by the private stakeholders, state governments, and the Nature Conservancy. So, third video, please.
Gobierno de México.
Thank you very much, Marie-Carmen Garcia Rivas, who is the manager of the Puerto Morelos National Park. I would like to mention that this world's first coral reef insurance policy has been triggered for the first time by the Hurricane Delta, with an amount of $800,000 payout from the policy and to fund the of a stretch of the reach and beach along the Mesoamerican Reef in the Quintana Roo region in Mexico. So thank you very much. This first presentation is finished, so we will start the second one because we are a little bit late. I will share my screen. Now we will review some accomplishments of the Resilience Partnership. We have been working, as I said, since 2016 with different workshops in different regions of the Atlantic. We have been maintaining a regular interaction with the partners despite the COVID period. We have been developing an online resource center with a resilience web platform and a scientific literature monitoring section, and also a resilience toolkit. We will give more details later. That includes resilience guidelines and the resilience self-assessment tool. We have been preparing the resolution on coastal resilience, WCC, that have been presented during the last Congress, Nature Congress, or Conservation Congress. The name of this resolution is Enhancing the Resilience of Coastal Areas in the Face of Climate Change, Biodiversity Crisis, and Rapid Coastal Development. We are developing national and regional resilience capacity building initiative based on resilience self-assessment tool. So the resolution has been voted in 2020 and has been prepared with the support of the Resilience Partnership, and this resolution has been proposed by the government of Senegal with the support of sponsors from 8 IUCN geographic regions. You can access the Resilience web platform with this URL, coastal online news, events, capacity building opportunities, especially monitoring of new papers and recent scientific results, resilience good practice of our different partners, and resilience FAQ. The resilience self-assessment tool is also, and resilience guidelines are also available on this platform. So we have been trying to identify the criteria to ensure resilience-based management based on a detailed analysis of the good practice of our partners and in-depth review of scientific literature and a detailed analysis on how resilience is taken into account in effectiveness frameworks. We have been also using the feedback from the different managers that are using the proposed tools. So you have the guidelines on resilience accessible on the platform, and the main criteria we are using are mainly anticipation, awareness, and responsiveness capacity of the management. What is the level of territorial integration of the MPA? The level of MPA social and cultural integration? What is the political and institutional resilience? And what are the capacity to manage knowledge and know-how? Now, we have been launching, as I said, different programs of coaching of MPA managers for implementing the resilience self-assessment tool. We have one program developing in Senegal and with the regional network of MPA for Western Africa. This program has been launched in January. We will launch a program in the US, in Brazil, it is under preparation now, probably in Mexico with the support of the National Council for Protected Area, in Portugal, and with MedPan, probably we will start by the end of November during the next forum of MPA managers in Monaco. I would like to give the floor to Mathieu Ducrot, who is managing the program in Senegal and with the Western Africa Network for MPAs. Thank you. Mathieu, you're online.
Hello, good morning to everyone. It's good morning for me and other times for people attending the meeting. I'm presently in Senegal. My name is Mathieu Ducrot. I'm a coastal geographer and I'm the chairperson of the scientific committee of the West African MPAs network. In Senegal, we have been some months ago starting to work with the MPAs Resilient Partnership, because it makes high sense for us in Senegal. You have to realize that in Senegal, fisheries, artisanal fisheries is one of the most important sector of activity, and the coasts are quite densely populated with very quickly rising demography, urban sprawl, and part of the natural resources are already loudly exploited and generally overexploited. The coast of the Senegal is also made of low elevation coastal areas, so we are here facing situations of risk that are rising with, of course, a lack of capacity of investment to build long-term defense. So we have to count on the intervention of the communities, and there is a very strong movement here of creation of marine protected areas, community-based MPAs. And Senegal, who was the country who promoted the motion on coastal resilience, has also developed very interesting innovations with an official process to recognize and formalize the community-based MPAs and give them an officially recognized status of conservation. And we are going towards shared governance system more formalized, including thanks to the achievement of the resilience self-assessment tool. And we are going towards a complete formalization of the local management committees, and the local management committees of the 13 community-based MPAs should be recognized in the 2 coming years in Senegal and have a legal status that will allow the communities to get better committed and engaged on the long term on the management of the areas. About AirSat, we started to use AirSat last year, and all the 13 and soon 15 community-based MPAs are committed to use AirSat now. It is a national program, and the tool is nationally adopted as one of the tools used aside classical tools like the IMET or MET or RAPAM for management effectiveness evaluation. I've been the coach for several sessions, more than 12 sessions now for AirSat trainings and evaluations, including 8 in the Senegal. And what is very interesting to retain is that it's very user-friendly, it's very easy to understand the questions. And what is more interesting is that you are, through AirSat, analyzing the management and the governance and the capacity of resilience of your MPA with complementary and different perspectives from classical management effectiveness evaluation tools. And it's generally launching very interesting discussion between the stakeholders that attend these meetings. In Senegal, we have been experiencing different types of meetings. Some of them were only with the rangers and the conservator, parks managers, but most of them were organized together with the local communities, with the local management committees, but also with other stakeholders like the mayors of the cities or small villages next by the MPA and the representative of the communities, representatives of groups of interest like women who work on fish processing and commercialization. And it's absolutely interesting to see that all these stakeholders get to understand very easily, very quickly the notion of resilience through the use of this tool. Once we've done the evaluation, we generally turn the evaluation into recommendations, and then the local management committees of the community-based MPAs and the rangers work together to turn the recommendations into plans of action and integrate activities into the annual plan of work. What is very interesting also is to consider that in a country with a national MPAs network, you have some recommendations that are addressed and managed locally at the level of the individual MPA, but there are some recommendations that also can be raised up for the hierarchy and the ministries. For example, about knowledge network, about preparation, about the system of insurance of the materials that are used for surveillance, for example, in the MPAs, and the range of recommendations and actions to be undertaken can be shared at different levels. So Senegal is one of the leading countries in implementing AirSat, and there are some very interesting feedbacks that are used by Jean-Jacques Boussard and his team and all the partnership, and we already think of developing AirSat for complementary uses for example, like in the suburbs of quick growing secondary cities, where there are some very interesting natural spaces that are threatened by the urban sprawl. And so I'm very happy to be part of this experience, because it's a very innovative, very easy to use tool, and it makes big sense at the different level, from the regional, national, and at the community level. I want to underline also that at the level of West Africa, the experience of Senegal is being spread over the region through a program of work on resilience launched by the West African Marine Protected Areas Network, and that our team is providing a coaching for the first sessions of AirSat to the MPAs managers in all the countries of West Africa. So I hope that we will come next time with other achievements, other ideas, other recommendations. And it's very interesting to know that we are in a position to share this experience with other regions of the world. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
So thank you very much, Mathieu. So we had the last video to present the tool, but I think that we are a little bit late. So you can access the tool on the coastal resilience.online platform, and you go to the option toolkit, and you will access the tools, and you can activate the demonstration of the tool directly in order to know how it works. What are our main next steps? We will develop a fact sheet for every criteria. We have some scientific publication under preparation on this experience. We will continue improving the web platform and the ERSAT tool, and we will implement an AquaSat tool. It is the same, a self-assessment tool, but dedicated to the resilience of aquaculture farms. We will also continue good practice analysis. For dissemination, we will continue working with national and regional networks of MPA managers, participating to international and regional events, and we would like to extend the partnership to new partners. So you will be very welcome if you want to join us, sending just a mail to the address MPA Resilience, Coastal Resilience.online. And thank you very much for your attention during this presentation. And now we can spend, I will deactivate my screen. Okay, we can have 5 minutes of question and answer. Please, you have the floor. You can raise your hand. No question?
You have Dr. Nora that raised the hand.
Okay.
Right. Yes, thank you very much. Very excellent presentations. Can you all hear me? Because my internet is not so stable. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Yes. It's very heartening to see a lot of activities going on for coral reef restoration, etc. As a marine biologist, I'm just wondering whether during the coral reef restoration projects, what kind of species are being used. I mean, we are moved now to use more resilient species because, as we know, the effects of climate change is more like La Nina, etc. The surface temperature, etc. It's becoming more frequent, so there is less time for the corals to heal. So, is there any tools or any technology, etc., to use more resilient corals? So that's one. The other one is also about monitoring. Apart from like the actual diving, is there any sort of online automatic kind of monitoring that's being utilized, artificial intelligence, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean-Jacques, we have a
Yes,
question
yes.
in the chat. Do you want to receive all the questions first, or do you prefer now to respond to
I think
Dr.
that
Nora?
considering the time, I think that I would like to give the floor to Valérie Braun for her presentation, and in the meantime, the participants can send their question through the chat, and
Yeah,
we will answer the
Jean-Jacques.
question after Valérie's presentation.
Jean-Jacques, sorry, we require the participants when we open the meeting this morning not to do the questions by the chat because we need the translation. So, and the translator cannot go directly to the chat. So
okay.
it's more difficult. So that's why I'm saying I can read one of the questions we have now in the chat, and then you continue, or we wait until then.
Yes, because I see that the time is over for this part of the presentation, and I would like to reserve time for Valerie for her presentation. So maybe we will make the question and answer session after the presentation of Valerie, please.
So we keep this session by then. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Pauline. Valerie, you have the floor, please.
Talofa. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to join you. Let me get my video up here. There we go. I am joining you from the South Pacific in American Samoa, and am delighted to see this effort expanding into the Indo-Pacific, and I'm happy to be here to share. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Excellent. Okay. And I believe my computer is not sharing.
See, it was sharing the screen.
Oh, okay.
Now, yes.
Can you see it now? Yes. Okay, excellent. It's hard to see on this. All right, so my name is Val Brown. I am the research coordinator for the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the use of climate vulnerability assessments to enhance resilience and our experiences here. The National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa is one of 15 national marine sanctuaries within the United States, and it is the only one in the Southern Hemisphere. The sanctuary is composed of 6 protected areas covering 13,581 square miles, and this includes a diverse array of marine habitats crossing all of the different zones from the surface and intertidal zone, coral reefs, all the way down to the deep sea and hydrothermal vent communities. We're best known for our resilient coral reef ecosystems. These sanctuary sites include remote and pristine areas, as well as sites near human communities that are very important for those communities. Climate change and overfishing are the biggest threats to these sites, and rising temperatures have led to coral bleaching events in 2015 and 2017, but we seem to be recovering quite well from those, thankfully. Some of you may know our most famous resident, which are our large Porites corals. This one is over 500 years old, and it is as big as a house. It is surrounded by other large Porites corals, suggesting that the island of Ta'u, where this is located, has been resilient for centuries and may hold some clues for us moving forward. The sanctuary also has extensive mesophotic coral ecosystems, and scientific investigation of these areas has been limited. However, initial exploration and monitoring work suggests that these are distinct ecosystems and that they may also be vulnerable to climate change. Moving a little deeper, the sanctuary also includes pelagic and deep ocean resources, including seamounts, an active hotspot volcano, and hydrothermal vents. More exploration and monitoring is needed to evaluate and manage these areas, but some of the initial information suggests that currents in the deep sea may also be slowing and seeing effects of climate change. But our most important resource is our human communities that depend on all of these marine resources. Samoa has a long, rich history. Samoans have lived in the archipelago for over 3,000 years, and these communities depend on healthy marine resources and coral reefs. It's an important part of the culture here. Samoans are closely tied to their ancestral lands. It is part of their identity, and climate change threatens to undermine these connections. It is one of the few places in the United States that retains traditional marine tenure systems, and the sanctuary is committed to respecting Fa'a Samoa, the Samoan way of life, because this is an important component of our management approach. So we work closely with local agencies and the community. And while our reefs and other resources have proven resilient thus far, we are seeing signs of climate impacts, including warmer waters, warmer and more acidic waters, and more frequent coral bleaching events. These impacts are expected to continue and worsen in the coming decades. And our most immediate threat is sea level rise, which has been exacerbated by subsidence of the island over the past decade. So the islands here in American Samoa have seen approximately 25 centimeters in sea level rise in the past decade due to a combination of global sea level rise and subsidence. Because of this threat, the Sanctuary Management Plan includes a climate change action plan, which identifies 4 strategies. These include strategies to green operations, to maximize our resilience, which is the one I'm going to talk about today, to improve research and response, and to promote public awareness. We use science to inform planning and decision making, as in the first presentation today talking about the adaptive cycle. It's a continuous cycle for us. There is a shorter iterative cycle to adjust management efforts based on emerging data or threats. But overall, we work on monitoring and assessment. That feeds into planning, and that feeds into implementation, with implementation being our primary action. We're using data on emergent threats to adjust our management, and we are adding a new step in this process to include climate vulnerability assessments in our management cycle. Vulnerability assessments, for those of you that aren't familiar with them, are tools to help managers identify factors that contribute to climate vulnerability and develop adaptation strategies to help keep these systems resilient and to enhance the adaptive capacity. And the frameworks for these range from very simple community-led processes all the way up to very complex modeling approaches. And so it's really important for managers to understand that there's this range of options out there and to be able to find the best options for their site and community based on your goals, your existing data, and resources available. And we've been going through this process, so I wanted to share some of the lessons that we've learned and some hints along the way. I think it's really important, if you're thinking about vulnerability assessments, to spend some time to frame your vulnerability assessment. So what's your geographic scope? Is it your MPA? Is it your village and island, entire country? And what's your focus? Are you focused only on coral reef ecosystems, or are you interested in the broader interactions with human communities? Or maybe you're only interested in fishing and food security and need to look more broadly to pelagic fisheries as well. Also consider your time scale, short-term or long-term, your budget, the technical expertise that you will need to carry out the analysis, and also stakeholder involvement. This is so important. How are you going to work with your partners? Do you want to work with your partners? But I think these are wonderful opportunities to build stakeholder engagement and build partnerships, and to figure out ways that you can engage your communities as well. Other things you need to consider are the available data that you have. Do you have all the pieces you need for the assessment? And also the outputs. What do you want to produce? Are you looking for a plan? Are you looking for a tool that can help you assess further? Are you looking for a prioritized list? It's important to have these in mind before getting started, because it can really help you narrow down your focus for your framework. And you also need to determine the best method then for, once you've done that framing, what is the best method for your assessment? Maybe you just need a quick overview and can do a desktop review with your existing data. Maybe you want to engage your community in every step of the way to build up their knowledge and engagement in the process. Or maybe you want something in between. So we are actually working on our second round of vulnerability assessments. We had an initial effort back in 2014 using this model that was developed by EcoAdapt. And for this, it didn't, well, I'll explain it and then we can talk about some of the things. This assessment looked not just at the sanctuary, it looked at the entire territory with a focus on key marine species and resources, which included coral reefs and fisheries. It was selected by the stakeholders that were involved and was a relatively short time frame. We brought in technical experts to run the process with limited stakeholder involvement, focused mostly on local resource agencies and partners rather than the community at large. The data was somewhat limited, and the output was a report with broad recommendations. Implementation was left for future decisions. This process did look at some of the standard vulnerability aspects, so it looked at exposure and sensitivity to understand the potential impact, and then the adaptive capacity of these resources to determine the overall vulnerability. So they went through this process for each of the selected targets, and this was the results. So you can see the focal resources assessed here include coral reef and mangrove habitats, water quality, reef fish, pelagic fish, sharks, rays, and sea turtles, and they rated from low to moderate to moderate. The next step in the process was to develop adaptation actions. They looked at the overall goals, developed strategies to reach those goals, and then specific actions. I brought up one example here to take you through. So this was the giant clams, Tridacna, Faisua here locally. They're an important cultural species, and they looked at future and current management actions. They were rated as a moderate vulnerability, and they provided 3 different actions. Those were then evaluated to look at their feasibility as well as their effectiveness. And you'll notice that for the giant clam actions, that the idea of hatcheries, genetic studies, and enforcing regulations could have a high level of effectiveness, but the feasibility of actually implementing these was quite low. They went on to provide additional recommendations, and the result was a plan with broad strategies and actions. Many of these were outside of the scope of the sanctuary to act on. Some required significant investment, such as the development of new wastewater treatment plants or sewage systems, and some were not specific enough to be actionable, such as utilize regulations and ensure enforcement, but it didn't talk about the specifics of how to use regulations and what species to target. The other big piece that was missing from this vulnerability assessment was that it did not incorporate the relationship that humans have with the ecosystem. There is a real need to include the community in the assessments and to evaluate the ecosystem services provided by the resources so that you find solutions that not only maximize, for instance, coral reef health, but also maximize human well-being at the same time. And so this is something that we are now looking to do in our next round of vulnerability assessments, to look at more of a socio-ecological systems framework where we can consider humans as part of the ecosystem and understand the interactions between people and our marine resources as we develop our next steps to help build resilience into our systems. So key lessons learned for us, first is to frame your assessment. Take the time to figure out what your questions are, how you want to set it up, and what methods you want to use. Make sure you choose an appropriate tool. Does it address your targets? Is it specific enough to guide your actions on the backside? And do you have enough data to inform the process, or do you need to collect some additional data first? Be sure to define your action area and your overall objectives, and also involve your partners. This is a wonderful process to really engage with communities, stakeholders, and partners to work forward and find solutions moving forward. You can recognize the threats to your resources and then find unique and inspirational ways to move forward to address those issues. So here at the Sanctuary in American Samoa, we're now developing our process to assess each of our individual sanctuary units and the communities that depend upon them. And we're working to then include ecosystem services into this overall framework. And we're hoping to find a great path forward that will allow us to do that and really go from this broad scale assessment that was done to something more focused and actionable and that engages our communities at the same time. So for our next steps, we know that climate change is a huge threat. We've already established a climate change working group through our Sanctuary Advisory Council, and they will be providing input into our climate change action plan and specifically into these vulnerability assessments so that we have our stakeholders on board from the beginning. And we're hoping to start initiating these assessments these new assessments in 2022. I just want to say, I'll close there, try to keep this short. Just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all and share our experience, and Bafatai.
Valerie, for this interesting presentation of American Samoa, and really the question of the resilience of corals is really important. And now we can proceed with the questions and answer. Just to raise your hand.
Maybe, Jean-Jacques, we can start with the one in the chat. I can read it so the translators can translate to the different languages. Okay. So, good afternoon. I'm Setra from Indonesia. We assist coral communities in utilizing marine space and marine conservation areas for environmentally friendly and sustainable marine cultivation and marine tourism, especially in dugong and seagrass conservation efforts. We are facing the impact of the oil palm plantation industry and the processing of mining goods around the marine areas that we monitor. Is there a strategy or international support program that can help us in convincing the industry to focus more on efforts to reduce the negative impact on the sea from its industrial activities? Or how to involve the industry in MPA management? And what is the process so that we in Indonesia can increase our capacity in utilizing the tools, ARSAT and Aquasat, that you, Jean-Jacques, said earlier? Thank you. Warm greetings from West Kalimantan, Indonesia.
So thank you very much for this this question. I think it's not an isolated case. What I would like to mention is that one of the messages included into the criteria that are used by the ARSAT tool is just to anticipate this kind of situation and to try to develop a large and complex relationship with all the stakeholders that are operating outside or beyond the limits of the protected area in order to anticipate this kind of situation. Because really, when the situation is really installed, it's quite difficult after that to solve the question. But I would like to encourage all the MPA managers that are present, attending this session, to communicate with us, to send an email, and we are absolutely at your disposal for a more in-depth presentation of the tools that have been presented. I hope that we are just at the beginning of this exchange and that they can be continued through a closer collaboration on resilience with partners in Southeast Asia. So in this case, ARSAT can help, could help to improve the resilience-based management of the MPA, but it's quite difficult to solve this kind of situation when the situation is already installed. Thank you very much for this question. Are there other questions?
You have Safran Yusri that raised the hand.
Yes, please. Please proceed. I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Safran Yusri from Terangi. My question is actually for both Eugene and Paul. I just noticed that most of the speakers had here repeatedly mentioned the use of tools, and based on your experience, uh, which tools can help us, especially in the development process and monitoring of the effectiveness of the conservation projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are especially working on the resilience dimension of the management, but it's clear that through the different good practice we have been analyzing, we have been identified some common denominators, even if these good practices are coming from very different contexts, as you have seen from USA, from Mexico, from Africa. But there are some common denominators, and these new behaviors of the managers have to be developed because the context is changing very fast. One of the messages we have seen is that the management of MPAs is not really taking into account what is happening in the context of the MPAs. And generally, the time of the management, the time to take decision, to adopt a management plan is not as faster as the rhythm or the speed of the change. So I think that the tools we have been developing are not perfect for sure, but can help to reduce or to mitigate the pressure and to adapt to changing situations. And it's good to include these tools as additional tools to the existing management effectiveness frameworks. So the review we have been implementing on the existing management effectiveness frameworks demonstrated that resilience is not really taken into account, and that there is a lot of potential improvement that we can do in order to get to resilience-based management of marine protected areas. Thank you. Other questions? I look at the gallery, but I don't see any hand. Dr. Nora, please. You have you can remind your questions you had at the beginning. Okay. Maybe Valerie could answer this question. Valerie?
Yeah, when she connects, let me repeat it out loud so the interpreters can translate it.
Okay.
With climate change impacts and high sea surface temperature events occurring frequently, and hence the coral do not have sufficient time to recover or heal, is there any tools or technology using more resilient coral species being used during coral restoration?
Yes, that's a great question. There are. So I think that you have a presentation later in this series from Petra McGowan, I believe from the Nature Conservancy, about the restoration toolkit and guide that they've put together. And within that, there's some really good guidance on just this topic. So a lot of the restoration programs in coral are now looking to use corals that have survived bleaching events that seem to have some sort of adaptive capacity to withstand higher temperatures. and use those as the basis of their restoration programs. So they usually bring those corals into nurseries, grow them out, and then use those corals or their offspring for part of their restoration because they're proven to be able to survive the event. So there's a whole bunch of research going on about that, and that guide actually includes that as one of the considerations. I'll pause there.
Thank you, Valérie. I'm reading the comment of the question of Dr. Nora on tools on monitoring, if there is any automatization used for monitoring, also for predictive early warning systems. I don't have, I think it's quite complicated because you have to monitor many different compartments on the ecosystem. So for sure, you have some tools that are used, for example, the automatic interpretation of camera trap in terrestrial environment. But I don't know if, yes, there is also the bleaching monitoring system. It's possible to have it, to automatize this kind of reconnaissance.
I just want to confirm.
Thank you for the link you sent.
I just want to confirm, as said by Valeria, that there will be a specific presentation on the session on restoration by Kristen Mais from TNC about this manager's guide to coral restoration, in which probably all those issues will be more developed. Just for your interest, you can join us at this session.
Yes, absolutely. Other questions? Thank you, Francis, for this comment. Maybe, Francis, you would like to take the floor?
You have also Mr. Goro Alor that asked for the floor.
Yes, you have the floor.
Baik, terima kasih, Bu. Kami di kawasan konservasi.
Thank you. So we are from the Alor MPA. We have set a name for 74 diving spots in the conservation area. My question is there any tools or application that we can use by using a satellite to monitor the diving point in our area? So that is my question. Thank you very much.
Maybe somebody would like to answer this question. Okay, so no answer for this question. It's quite specialized, and I think that there are a lot of satellite tools. It depends now on the resolution of the data you need. Because if it is to monitor diving spot, I think it needs a very high resolution, which is not always easy to get, and it could be also quite expensive. With small resolution pictures, satellite pictures, it's possible, for example, to monitor bleaching events such as the experiments that are ongoing on the Great Barrier of Coral in Australia. But for diving sites, I think it's more complicated. You can look at the website of allencoralatlas.org that Francis Taub sent to us. Okay, if there are no more questions, please could you launch the second poll with 2 questions before closing the session?
Jean-Jacques, there is a question from Matt Kurebima.
Okay, you have the floor, please.
Hi. Just one question about your tools, especially about the human dimension. You measure human dimension or on effectiveness of conservation management or MPA management. Do you have like in your tools? You have like the how you measure about people perception, people behavior, or people changing their perception from time to time when your implementation of you implement your MPA management in your area. That's the first one question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. I will go back to English. Okay. Bon. One of the criteria of the resilience self-assessment tool is addressing the social and cultural integration of the MPA. That means that, it's a rapid tool, rapid assessment tool. So we cannot be very detailed in the questions because this tool is based on multiple choice questions. But it's important to understand what extent the MPA is considered by the population, by the communities, as part of their natural heritage and of their community heritage. It's very important. Now, regarding the behavior and the comportment, the perception of MPA's managers, we have been observing that it's really necessary now to switch a little bit and to give more interest and more consideration on to what happened in the context of the MPAs. Sometimes for example, the realization of new infrastructure such as roads, bridge, and other are decided in the capital and very far from the field. And generally, when you discover this new initiative that can be affecting the MPA, it's too late. So it's important to be able to detect weak signals of change, to maintain good relation with other sectors that are not especially conservation, that can be infrastructure, urbanism, and other, in order to be aware as soon as possible and very early of the new development. So it is one attitude of vigilance that must be developed by MPA manager and by MPA management. The poll has not been launched. Thank you. So we will give 2 or 3 minutes to respond to the poll because the session is not, we are 10:30, so it's time to end the session. So I would like to thank all the participants to attend this session 2 on resilience. As I said, we are just at the beginning of this exchange, and they can be continued through closer collaboration on resilience with partners in Southeast Asia. We are totally open to develop contacts and to maybe organize webinar, get more information on the tools we are developing. We can also organize a remote session, online session to coach some MPA manager for testing and using the tools. And I think that it was really a good opportunity to start this exchange.
So while we are waiting for the results,
exactly.
Just let me say thank you, Jean-Jacques. Thank you to all the speakers and all your partners that send the beautiful videos and contents to bring this diversity of experiences around resilience. So and thanks to all of you that have been following the sessions today. Just reminded that we continue tomorrow with the first session that we will have is about agreements for transboundary cooperation. This is session 3, and tomorrow we will have also session 4 about protection of marine turtles and their habitats, and session 5 about the tools, a new tool for MPA management, which is the marine mammals tool developed as well by the Ocean Governance Project. So I don't know if you have already the results, Jean-Jacques, to share?
Yes, I think we can stop the poll because time is over now. So thank you everyone, and see you, I hope. And thank you to Valérie also, and all the participants and all the speakers. We can close the session, I think.
Okay, so thanks a lot, and see all of you tomorrow, or depending for whom it's today, later. So anyway, let's see again at next session. Thanks so much, and have a nice time.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.